So, Ogan Davado. I'm Sean Teuton. I'm a citizen of the Cherokee Nation and a professor of English here at the University of Arkansas and the director of the Indigenous Studies program. And this evening, in the event we have planned, in some ways makes me feel that everything I wanted to do with coming here 7 years ago is finally starting to happen. Right? I mean, it's happening that way. Things are coming together now for the Native Studies program. That almost for someone like me who's not all that spiritual, to just start to feel that things are converging in a way that I don't even want to question. They're very exciting times. Maybe like some of you, when I was your age, about your age, I became overwhelmed with this feeling that I wanted to have a deeper understanding of my culture. And it probably coincided with graduate study. And so as a young man, I sought to go live in my tribal community, which I did not know very well. I didn't grow up in my tribal community. And so one summer, against the wishes of my dissertation director, I fled Western New York and went to Tahlequah, Oklahoma, the capital of the Cherokee Nation. And there I stayed in the at Northeastern State University in the dormitory. It's been since torn down, but that dormitory, they said, was haunted, and it was near the site of the original Cherokee female seminary that the Cherokee Nation built to educate the young ladies in our nation. And I started thinking that something was happening within me while residing there. And I went out and sought to interview and speak with Cherokee artists and writers. I would go to the Cherokee tribal complex and talk to leaders of our government. But then I began to realize quickly that if you want to understand culture and culture, it requires much more than just reading books, which I did a lot of. It requires a kind of cultural practice. It's not what we read or even what we say, but rather what we do. And luckily by then, I was put in touch with a young man who was heading the ceremonial grounds. That's a place of outdoor worship and cultural practice for many of the Southeastern nations, where people gather and dance, eat, and play stickball. But far much more than that. They enact, right, through cultural practice, what it means to be a Native person, a Cherokee person. And so I caught a ride with an older Cherokee artist in a 55 Chevrolet late at night and made my way out to Cookson Hills. And I probably couldn't tell you where that is now. If I had to go find it, I probably couldn't find it. And there I got to sit and observe people dancing all night and a fire whose ashes reached the stars and became indistinguishable with the stars. And it was in that moment I thought, I've got to know more about this. And so eventually I got to meet this young man who was leading the ceremonial grounds, and his name was David Comingdeer. And over the years, I got to become closer with him and get to know him. And eventually I became a member of the Choctaw grounds, of which he is the chief today. And there I gained my name, Ogan, which I shared with you a moment ago. And in our language, it means groundhog. There's a story for that, but I won't go into. I won't tell you today. This is all to say that our guest tonight is someone who is at the center of cultural revitalization, survival as a practice. Like I would never diminish the importance of reading books, you all. I've done a lot of that, and I still do. But there's something very powerful about going out and talking to elders, to people who have practiced culture, and learn what you can do to enact culture within yourself that goes, or maybe will complement the reading, that kind of abstract knowledge that we often seek in the university. So I'd like to introduce you today the chief of the Choctaw grads in Cherokee Nation. And what Cherokees have recognized, the nation's recognized as a living, national living treasure. Right? There's only a few people in the Cherokee Nation who are recognized for that title, and it's because this person has performed culture. They can enact culture and help us keep our culture alive. If we don't keep our culture alive, our language, our cultural practices, it raises the question of whether we're still a people. That's how important it is. And it's only as good as the generation who has the acumen to pass it on to the next generation. And that's what David Comingdeer has been doing in his creation of the ball sticks. It's sort of the ancient stickball game that has preoccupied Native people for hundreds of years, and many argue is the precursor of modern day sports in America. So I'd like to introduce to you David Comingdeer. Please come up and say a few words.
I always carry a bag around with me. So, forgot you. David Comingdeer. My friend Ogan. I've known him for a long time, over 20 years. And I gave him that name. He wouldn't tell you why, but I will. We had a gathering at our tribal town community one year, probably about almost 20 years ago, 19. And according to our tradition, you can't get a name until 4 years of commitment, 4 consecutive green corn ceremonies you've been through. And when you reach the 4th green corn ceremony and you complete it, you have a chance to accept a name from that community. Some call it a warrior name or an Indian name, a Cherokee name. But in our culture, when you earned that name, it qualifies you for certain things if you have to accept a name. His name was Ogan, and he accepted that name. That was probably 16 years ago when he got the name. Don't you think? 16, because 20 years was the first event that sparked my imagination to give you the name, and then you had to wait 4 years to get it. Now, all that time I thought, I'm naming him Ogan because of this single weather event, a weather event. There was a horrible storm coming through. He was camping with his brother. They had tents set up, maybe one tent, I don't remember. But they happened to be camping on a piece of ground that when the heavy rains come, it becomes a creek, kind of a low-lying area. As that rain came through and they had their little home tent set up, and we thought, oh my gosh, those boys are going to drown. And here, first thing I saw was Mr. Teuton coming out of that water, rushing in the tent. He was coming out, and he looked like an old groundhog coming out of his den. Just coming out, crawling out, and just a total washout. And that's how he got that name. I'll never forget the image of him coming out of there. Now, I told him the other day, we need to call him Oganuete, because he's got gray hair. It means old groundhog. But anyway, I am very happy to be here. I am a very proud citizen of the Cherokee Nation. I'm a father of 4 and a grandfather to 7. One is due, the 8th one is due any day. My son and his wife are about to have their first child. I was blessed with a lot of daughters, 1 son. But some 3 of them in here were in the last class that I talked in. And it always feels awkward talking back to back because somebody might, I don't want to say the same thing I said before. So it becomes challenging to talk to the group, but I am a stick maker. Now, what does that mean? Well, a stick maker, there's very few left. We have the Eastern Cherokees. We have the Oklahoma Cherokees. We have the Oklahoma Muskogee Creek Indians, the Chickasaws in Oklahoma, the Choctaws in Oklahoma, the Seminoles in Oklahoma. Then we have the Mississippi's, the Choctaws in Mississippi. Then we have the Alabama Cachalots in Livingston, Texas. Then we have the Iroquois, the Six Nations, the Onondaga, Mohawk, all the tribes up around the Great Lakes. All of these people that are all over the United States now used to all be east of the Mississippi River. All the tribes from Florida all the way up into the Great Lakes. They all had something in common. It was the stick game, what we call stickball. And very few stick makers are left. I don't know if there ever was very many stick makers, to be honest with you. Yeah, I don't think it's something that just kind of like everybody did. But I have been very blessed in my life to be friends with, and I knew certain individual men who were stick makers in their prime, when they were in their prime. By the time I knew them, they were older men, but they shared with me ways to make sticks and whatnot, because I was a struggling stick maker and I didn't have a mentor. So I talked to several men over my years. All of them have died of old age. And so now I feel obligated. I feel a duty to continue what they shared with me. Otherwise, everything that they did would be a waste of time. And I'm not going to have that. So what they shared with me, the reason I think they shared it with me is because they already knew I was trying. They already knew I was making an effort to learn. And learning anything, the willingness to learn is 95% of it. You have to be willing to learn. The other 5% is showing up. And you got 100%. You will learn. But the stick making for me is something that it wasn't a race, it wasn't a competition, it was more of a duty, and it was very difficult to learn how to do this. Over time, I've been making sticks now for 27 years, 50 years old, so most of my life has been spent at least trying to make ball sticks for my people. And I never was a champion of anything. I never really won a race or won the trophy for state championship, or wasn't the best of anything. But I was determined to become the best stick maker. Just to myself, that's what I wanted to be. I was fascinated with the sticks, fascinated with the game, the speed of it, the toughness of it, the spirit of the game. The age is beyond what we know. The United States of America is about 250 years old. This game predates it by several thousand years. So when you think of America and all of its magnanimity and all of its might, it's just an infant, really. It will fall, die, like all countries, like all nations. We don't remain alert. And, even the mighty Cherokee Nation and all the mighty powerful tribes of the Southeast, they all fell. That's what we're in Oklahoma. While we faced so much adversity, we fell. But through all of that, there were things that our people, despite extreme hardships and just full out frontal attack, genocide against the people. And I assure you, there is very little reason that we as a people with any culture should be left today. It was pure grit and determination and one good heart passing info to the next person is why things survived for our people, to keep us at least somewhat intact. The stick game is something that links so many tribes together, far beyond the origin of them, of America, what we know as America. But nevertheless, this game is still played today. For some, it is still part of somewhat of a religious experience, a religious event. We prepared for it, you do it religiously. Then for others, it's a sport. It's a sport. It's like soccer, but nevertheless, it has survived. And when Ogun asked me to come, and Lawrence Panther asked if I would come here, I said, yeah, I'll come. So it's for that reason that I stand here to share with you this. Now, there's no way I could explain in the time frame that we have, but I can take a little piece of our culture, my very specific contribution to my tribe, share it with you here with what I have in this bag. Over the years, I have struggled and I have failed a lot doing this. But some years ago, I started getting better at it, started maturing, slowing down, listening, applying myself, really applying myself to this art. And one day, next thing I knew, 20 or 21 years of making sticks, my tribe thought it was so important what I was doing that I was designated as a national living treasure for the Cherokee people. So for the first time in my life, I was the best at something, even though it took 21 years. And I have no choice but to continue getting better. And I actually have my medallion. This is my medallion, copper, issued to me by my tribe, saying National Living Treasure, has my name on the bag. 7 years ago when I got this. Certainly didn't come here to brag to you about that, but it is the only thing I've ever really been the best at. So I guess if you only give it one brag, that's so bad. Take that and share it if you're called to do that. But I do spend most of my days now at home in my shop. I am a retired firefighter. United States federal firefighting programs. What I brought was a piece of hickory wood. This is split out of a log. And this is what a ball stick begins its life. Once harvested from the woods, the tree is cut. It's split out by hand with hammer and wedge. And this is what would come up. They call it a stave. It's called a stave. And then from there, like this, carved with a knife, steamed over fire, and turned and bent to hold the shape for the ball player. Cleaned up, scraped, smooth, drilled and laced up for the ball game. There are several types of sticks that I brought for you to share, show the difference. This is stick for the Eastern Cherokee Indian ball game. This is a stick for the Oklahoma Muskogee Creek Indian. Different stick, but yet still stick ball, different tribe, different state. We have other sticks here. Choctaw. These are made for different ball games. This is heavy. We're wrapping around an opponent, taking them down. Contact with other sticks. This is made for speed, accuracy. Totally different game. So you have different sticks. You're going to have different forms of the stick. These are an Oklahoma Cherokee, different from these others. This is for social game, not necessarily war game. They're made for accuracy. Once carved out, this is what it looks like before it's finished. This is the only tool that's touched this is the draw knife. The draw knife is this. Two-handled blade. What cleans up the wood. This knife, this exact knife, is what has done the work to this. Very simple, very simple tool, but very effective, very sharp. This is the newest knife that I own. This one is over 50 years old. I have one knife that dates 1834. So, in my reckoning, the draw knife is probably not so much a part of the farm today as it was in generations past. Because with this blade right here, or some sort of draw knife, there's lots of different draw knife sizes, shapes. You could make anything. Axe handle, hammer handle, fence posts, floorboards, shingles for a roof, wooden shingles, even parts to wagons, the wagon wheel spokes, the wooden spokes. This draw knife could make anything. And I'm quite positive that the first Cherokees 300 years ago or so that saw this made quick trade to get their hands on something like this. And so it's been around my people for a long time. And is the preferred tool to make a floss stick. It works with the grain of the wood. It's not like a saw where it can mess up the grain and the stick become weak and break. This stick will not break because the hand tool is used to carve it. So it's quite a natural experience to make sticks. And I brought a hood in from one of the recent logs that I cut for some sticks. This is the small end of a log that was about 4 feet long that I made ball sticks. And this is how I split it out. You can see the lines I drew. Each one of these little squares are these, what are shapes called that have odd sides? Yeah, these oids right here. Some of them are four-sided. They're all four-sided, but they're odd shaped, obtuse squares. I'm using that. I like that. These each make a stick. So when you cut a log, it has to be split down by hand with wedges and a hammer. And so each one did this little bitty log right here made 24 ball sticks. So really nothing goes to waste. And then once you split them out, like this is one of these little pieces. That's what this is. Once you split the log out, then the draw knife is applied to the wood. This is clamped down in a vise, and the draw knife carves it out. the shavings that are produced, the byproduct of making the stick, will pile up in the shop pretty big. So all that build fire. That's what steams the stick. So even the waste of it is still producing the necessary heat to make a hickory turn a 180. Is that right? 180? Yeah, 360 means turn and go in the same direction we're going. 180 would be back that way. So that's a 180. That is a fierce turn on a piece of wood without breaking. So the only way to do that, to bend steel or wood, is to heat. But the wood will burn if we just heat it. So we have to use steam. So it more cooks it. You know, just like when you're cooking food, pasta or something. It starts out hard, but once you boil it, steam it, the vegetables, they soften. Well, the wood is the same thing, but it must be done fresh. When I cut a log, and I carry that log back to my truck, I take it directly home, I split the log up, I match my staves together, tie them together, and they go underwater. And they'll stay underwater until I pull that stave out to carve it into a stick. That way, the wood won't dry. Now, the old people used to put the log or something in a creek, you know, tie it off to a tree and throw it out in the creek. But I don't have a creek running by my house. And I tried to use the pond. I did years ago. And then I thought, oh, this would be such a great idea. I'll use the pond. I'll throw the logs out in the pond. Because hickory logs, when fresh, will sink. So I throw them out in the pond. Well, then we had a rainy season. They were 20 feet out in water this deep. I couldn't get to them. And I lost them till the next drought when I could get back. You know, so it didn't work. So I thought, well, I'm gonna buy a horse trough. You know, big, long, 6-foot horse troughs. That, you know, is an investment. So now when I split them up, everything goes in the horse trough. It stays there. And that sort of stops the wood from drying out and ruining. I have one set of sticks. In fact, one set of sticks that was at our ball ground this weekend. One of my nephews was playing ball with them. The set of sticks he had yesterday playing ball with stayed underwater 10 years before I ever pulled them out and made sticks with it. So really, once you pull them out, once you put them in the water, they really last almost forever. And you know, they got that reality TV stuff, the loggers, the swamp loggers and whatnot. That's the same thing. They're pulling logs up that sunk in the early 1800s, late 1700s from early logging industry. They're pulling those old cypress logs up, virgin timber. It's worth, you know, $1,000 an inch now or whatever. You know, it's so rare. So I'm kind of doing the same thing that happened back then, is submerging them underwater. But I know some of the old folks that I learned to make sticks from, they didn't put them underwater, but they would bury them. Very interesting to me. They would cut a fresh log, and then somewhere out back of the home, they would dig a hole, you know, like a long hole. And they would lay that fresh, wet log down in that hole and bury it. And it would stay there until they were ready to use it. And they might save up several of them, you know, and sort of kind of like an old root cellar keeping food fresh. It would kind of keep the log alive, the moisture in the soil, and it trapped it where the air wasn't evaporating from the log and drying out. So that's an old practice too. But where I live, is Adair County. And our language, that area is called Tawiscal Scottugan. That means Flint Rock District. You ain't digging no hole big enough to put a log in the ground. If you live in Muskogee County or Okwuskie County or other counties, you can dig a hole in your yard. But over where I'm at, it's not practical. So the horse trough was my answer to that. Put them underwater and leave them there. So there's more than one way to skin a cat. But that's part of our culture that if I had to use it, I could. If I didn't have any water, I could bury the logs, which is fascinating to me. It's just a really neat thing to think about. An old fellow, because they learned that from somebody. He didn't make that up. That was passed down. And it's a fascinating little sort of primitive tradition there to preserve wood. Does anybody have any questions? Go ahead.
I'm wondering why the shape from the Eastern Cherokee to the Oklahoma Cherokee sticks is different. Why the different bend?
Let's talk about that. This is the modern day ball stick for Eastern Cherokee Indian. EBCI, Eastern Band of Cherokee Indians, North Carolina. This is a modern day ball stick for the Oklahoma Cherokee Indian. CNO, Cherokee Nation of Oklahoma. Put them side by side, they're kind of the same size, but they have a different shape. One thing that is similar is the crossing of the strings. That has remained the same. The difference is this is for a men's war game. This is for a social game where women and children play. So even though it's stickball, it's a different game. There are different games. If the Eastern Band of Cherokee Indians come here to play ball with us, you know what kind of stick they use? They use our stick. And if we go there and play their game with them, we use their stick. And I make their sticks for them, some of them, a few of them. And so even though I'm not part of that tribe, I know how they like their sticks and I'll make it for them. The Creek Indian, same way. This Muskogee stick, it's very similar to the Cherokee stick in Oklahoma as far as size. But notice the lacing has the diamond shape. That's a Muskogee trait. See it more, you see it? More of a diamond pattern, and the Cherokee is more of a ladder, or like a turtle shell. Looks like turtle shell. It's a Cherokee trait. So there's different sticks for different games. This stick here is a Mississippi Choctaw style stick. Very fast, very accurate, very simple. This stick is not made to take impact from another stick. It's made to run. It's made to be accurate to throw and be very, very quick and at least on the field. This is made for brutality, to wrap around your opponent, pull them down, hit one stick to the other stick, get a stick contact. This stick reflects. This one won't. This one is full impact. If you wrap this around a 250-pound man, it's going to break it. Actually, no. This is the same exact wood. In fact, this is the same tree. This is the outer part of the wood, from the bark to the heart. This is the heart. You know, the heartwood's darker. This is the same exact tree. Good question, though. That's very interesting. I didn't really think about the coloration. This is actually, well, you can kind of see it on this. It's kind of dark, all darkening now, but this outer ring, that's this light color. This darker part is the heartwood. So you're going to get some color difference. That's a good question. Any other questions? Yes, ma'am.
So, okay, so, I worked at Cherokee Center back club team, and one of the things that brought me into this was like saying like having your crossover. So with the sticks, because I know lacrosse, you can kind of tell where a player plays on the field based on the length of their stick. Is there a certain distinction within those where you kind of come out and see where the player is, or you just kind of stick and one to the ball?
Good question. And I have an example. See this stick? The cup is rather small. This is for very accurate throwing. This, on the other hand, both is a Choctaw variety. This is a rear defense. Catch anything, but probably not very accurate throwing because it's, you don't know where the ball is going to come out. It's going to fly. You know, like soccer, clear the ball. So you got defender sticks and you got shooter sticks. This is rear guard. This is a forward scorer player. Same game, same try. Good question. So and of course, some people prefer longer handles. Some people prefer shorter handles. You think, well, that big tough man's got the little bitty short sticks out there. Well, he probably wants them. He's used to playing with them. And with short sticks, you can be very aggressive and very accurate. The longer you are from the head of this stick, the less control you have. Imagine using chopsticks that are 2 feet long. Come on now, that's imagery right there. Chopsticks are a standard length for a reason. Ball sticks are kind of the same way. You might occasionally get an old guy that just can't hardly bend over to pick the ball up. And he's going to say, I want some longer sticks because I can't bend over. Or you might have a guy that wants longer sticks to guard the goal, make sure the ball don't go above him. Something like that. But the longer the stick, the less it's probably defense. Longer sticks are probably defense. I'll put it that way. Longer the stick, you have less ball control and not be very accurate throwing. So does that kind of answer? Yes. Okay. Anybody else? Somebody?
Are they always hickory?
Nope, they're not. Another good question. The varieties of wood that I have used, hickory is always the favorite wood. People just love hickories. Hard, everybody loves hickory. But there is white oak. There's white oak. This is a white oak stick. This is a hickory stick here. See the color difference. This is also this set of sticks here, which I just made 1 week ago, Monday. I cut the log and made the sticks the same day, last Monday, 7 days ago. This, I'm gonna pass this around. Feel this wood. I make about 16 sticks a day with the draw knife. Well, but you remember, I cut the logs fresh, split them, and put them under the water. So really, once they hit that steam pipe with that fire burning underneath it, once they hit that steam, that stick is so saturated with water, it's ready. It's ready. It's not even dried out. It's so ready to be bent or something. This particular piece of wood here is the only set of sticks I've ever made with that wood. And I've never known another stick maker to use that wood because usually that tree is extremely unsuitable for ball sticks. It's small, it's crooked. Those are made of dogwood. Yes, ma'am.
So you mentioned earlier on that some people participated in charging up a match? Are there certain things that you do to honor it?
Yes. If it's a traditional game, a full traditional ceremonial game between two teams of men, there's a lot of preparation to qualify a man to step on that ball field. First of all, the games begin at daybreak, early in the morning. So there's been a day or two of ceremony, fasting, song, dancing, almost an athletic feat, 48 hours or something just to get to that stage. And I did bring piece that I wear when we play ball, because it's not like you have a jersey and like Nike cleats and stuff. All this comes off to play ball in the old game. This is our headgear. This is your helmet. You tie it around your forehead and your temples to mitigate lacerations or, worse. It's full impact game, full speed. This is your neck wear. You put this around your neck and the red drapes over your chest and your upper back. Now we call this the mane of the lion. When the man wears it on bare chest, it looks like a lion's mane. Say, no lion goes to battle without his mane. And this is what they wear. But in reality, this red pieces coming down a man's chest prevents his teammates from panicking when his teeth become dislodged from his mouth and the blood is pouring onto his body, or lacerations to his head. It hides the blood flow that is going to come. It's camouflaging that. And even during the ceremonial dance, even though people might wear clothes much like I have on, maybe a hat, a feather, maybe a cowboy hat or a cap, you can always tell in that dance who's playing ball the next day, because underneath all their clothes, they're dancing with the mane of the lion. It's fascinating. The next morning, everything comes off, but their mane and their breechcloth, this is the one I wear, ties around, and this is your uniform. Along with a pair of Walmart basketball shorts underneath, of course. But there was a time, this was it. Yeah. And in our language, this is called the diaper, which translates, there was actually a diaper piece that was worn under, But this is for wearing a pair of shorts and then throwing this over the top, symbolically.
Did you make your dress?
My wife made this. Yeah. That's kind of and when you play that game, you're prepared for it. And you don't dare step on that field without being fully qualified. Because the guys out there, it's serious business. You're representing yourself, but you also represent your family and your tribal town. And the game, although is not so much a full war game anymore, it's still, the way the sermons are given, I guess, or the benediction before we play, as the speaker is walking down through between the line of men, 50 on 50, all the sticks laid, the enemy stick laid to the enemy stick, and then the speaker is walking down through giving the benediction for the game. That's what he's telling you. He's saying, this is our history. This is who we come from. You men come from a people that would stand out and protect their family, step out in between any danger in your tribal town, give your life, crawl forward. You know, they tell you all this stuff. But today it's brother against brother, father against son. It's not a war game. It's the reminder of a war game. So there are certain restrictions been put on it, certain rules have been put on it to eliminate, you know, really taking a guy out. Because in the old days, this was war. This was our war. This is how we determine a winner and a loser. Was play ball. Didn't matter the tribe. It didn't matter the tribal town. Everybody could play ball. Cherokee could play against the Choctaw. The Choctaw could play against Choctaw. Play against any of the tribes that play ball. Challenge them to a ball ground. Set the goals. Determine what score we're going to go to and what acreage is at stake. Maybe we want North Georgia. We're going to play ball, we're going to win it, we're going to lose it. You know, hunting ground, territory. That's how Indians decided stuff. We didn't just kill each other. Dang, I mean, we might capture you and you know, make a worker out of you for a few years, but you know, we tie them ropes real loose so you can get back your people, you know, and because we might need you again. But ball game, this is where things are settled. And wouldn't it be amazing today if these countries were man enough to instead of pushing buttons and blowing people up, if they could, you know, put your best men out here, we'll play ball. You know, that would be amazing. That's the way the Indian nations did it. That's our history. And that's what made us who we are today. And it's our contribution to the world. Think of all the sports with a 50-yard line or a center line, 2 goals, 2 equal teams coming out. That comes from this. That's the native.
People are on the teams. How does it play out?
Equal. Equal. Man for man. If you have 50, we'll put 50 out there. If you have 27, we'll put 27 out there. Man for man. Yep. Equal. That's the way it's played. Could be 102 against 102. It's not a limit, but it's got to be equal. Got to be equal. And the European was fascinated with field sport when they came here. They, you know, went into the Atlantic into the interior continent. As the Indians were playing ball, thousands of people watching, high-spirited game, full contact field sport. They were fascinated with it. And so all these sports have developed from that. That was our contribution. Before that, they had like golf, tennis, all that hardcore stuff. Field sport is our contribution, along with Southern hospitality, of course. And, you know, remember the Pilgrims and the first Thanksgiving? That hospitality came from us. We contribute a lot to the world. Democracy. Everyone has a voice. That's Indians. You know, then this is our war, or the little brother war. Any other questions? Yes, sir.
So is this about like, can you say the name of it?
Stick ball. Stick ball. Untitled. That's what we call it. It's ball game. Sport. I haven't showed you all the ball. I know.
Especially because we got somebody from Europe, we want to talk a little bit about the social game, and I'm hoping we can host one. My friend BJ Ross.
Oh yeah,
And
my
we're
cousin.
going to come up and do a demonstration, I think, this fall. So,
There you go.
yeah, I'm excited about it.
Old BJ.
Yeah.
His Cherokee name, Stewie Stink. Key.
I didn't know.
Yeah. Yeah, he's my cousin.
Did he make that ball?
No, he did not make this ball. He's a ball maker.
Yeah.
These are the simple balls. These are ones a little bigger than the other. Sometimes they're made by hand. So, but there is a range of size. Of course, your cups are only so big, so you couldn't use something too big, but both of these would work. And of course, 2 sticks are used per man in the Cherokee Creek Choctaw game. Say again?
Like one individual person has 2 sticks.
2 sticks, that's now. So basically, this is your ball. This is how your sticks are handled. The ball's handled right here. There's the ball. And you throw. And you can catch. I'm not going to hold the thing here, but ball's coming at you. You can chopstick thing, catch it, and then throw. It's not really a passing game, though. It's get the ball downfield, somebody else pick it up, and run it through the goal type game. With extreme prejudice against you the other way. I mean, they're coming after you. So when you get the ball in stick ball, you pick the ball up and you instantly get rid of it. Because the longer you hold the ball, you're increasing the odds of dying. Because every other warrior is coming at you trying to dislodge that ball, and they'll hit you in the leg, in the face to make you drop that ball. They'll hit your sticks too. But these hands get broken a lot. It hits to this knuckle specifically breaks almost every game. Somebody will break their hand. Yeah. So, or collarbone, that's a good one. Gets hit, smashed, or hit the ground hard, dig shoulder in, collarbone snaps. Because you've got another 300-pounder on top of you, no padding. So it's pretty high spirited. Fun to watch. Fun to watch. The social game that this young woman asked about, good question. That is a totally different stick game than the war game. You know, the big men's game where it's all about being macho and tough and fast and all that.
When did girls start playing the field game too?
Recently.
Yeah, I knew it.
Recently. Organized female stickball teams are a thing now. Not everybody agrees with it.
I was gonna say, you said a little reluctantly.
Not everybody agrees with it. But they're out there. Different tribes. Even some Cherokees play. Quite a few Cherokee women play on Choctaw tournament ball teams. It's a sport. I'm not talking about, you know, the breechcloth game, the war game. I'm talking about a sport, a tournament with jerseys and Nike tennis shoes and stuff like that. So it has expanded away from the ceremonial tribal town communities to be a sport, which is great. And I love it. I'm glad. But the social game that she's asking about, that's a much different game. Sticks are used, ball is used, and a target. A single pole, 25 or 30 feet tall with a target on top. Maybe the size of a basketball or in the shape of a big fish. Maybe as long as my arm. But 30 feet up, it's pretty good ways to throw that, to hit it. And women use their hands, and the men use their sticks. And you get the ball and you throw it up and try to hit the target on top. Now, some call it social game, some call it Sunday stick ball, some call it the pole game or the fish game or whatever. The object of that game, 2 things. First and foremost, it brings the people together. All ages, families, grandparents can be on the same ball field as their grandchildren, boys or girls. Everybody can come together and play that game. It's a round ball ground with one target in the middle, a single raised pole. And that's the target on top, which is scorer. Now, the second reason for that game, and the oldest reason for that game, is this. to prepare the little boys for the war game. And that's why the women can use their hands and pretty much throw the boys around. You know, horse collar, rip their shirt, take their sticks and throw them out in the grass and make them walk and go get them, push them down, you know, what do they call, whiplash them, you know, hit them in the back when they're not looking and stuff like that. The girls can do any of that to the boys. The sisters can hurt the brothers. And those boys have to hang on to them sticks. You know, and then they get thrown to the ground, they have to get up without crying and, you know, being wimpy. So that hardens the boys to grow so that they'll be suitable enough men to defend that town during the main game. That's the beginning of that. From the time they're 2 or 3 years old, you are obligated to throw him to the ground. Yes, and kick him once if you have to. Toughen him up. These people had no time for, you know, like softies or nothing like that out there. They had to be raised tough to defend, you know, to play this game, the main game. Any other questions?
Is there a tradition when if your stick is broken or if it goes out of use?
There is. If I'm a ball player and my right stick breaks, Cherokee way, I'll take these sticks, I might tie them together, and we'll go down to the river, and I'm gonna throw them in. I might even weigh them down with a rock to sink them.
So no.
They're done. They've done their job. Then I make a new set. See, that keeps me employed. I ain't saying I make bad sticks or anything like that, but when a guy calls me, I will say this. And I'm in the middle of making a pair right now to replace a set of sticks 10 years old to a dear friend of mine, a Muskogee Indian, who has been using a set of my sticks for 10 years. And 1 week ago in an East-West traditional game at dawn, one of his sticks broke his heart. Now he's got a bunch of my sticks, so he had an extra set, but that was his favorite set, 10 years old. He called me, sent me a picture that Sunday night. He said, I hate to send this picture to you, but look what happened to my stick. And I said, Buffalo, he thought he was going to buy another set or whatever. I was going to make some excuses. At Buffalo, that set had a lifetime warranty. And so Monday morning, I went out and cut him another log. And I've already got his set hanging up, ready to be finished. But he's got to put those in the river. We can't dwell around on this stuff, man. If it's broke, we throw it away. You don't make a new one for it. That's a matched pair. That came from the same tree. One fails, the other one goes with it to the grave. On the other hand, if they do last the man his lifetime, which sometimes they do, without breaking, they'll bury it with him. They'll bury it, they'll lay them in the grave. Oh yeah. So, good question though. Anybody else? One more question?
Let's hear a round of applause.
Yes, thank you.